Ladies and gentlemen, I'm bringing you a different type of game to what I would usually be bringing you. I'm bringing you a game called Act of Aggression. Now, for those of you who aren't following it, it is a strategy game of the real-time genre, as they say, made by Eugene Systems. Now, what are Eugene Systems known for? They are known for games such as Wargame Red Dragon, Wargame Airland Battle, Wargame European Escalation, and Act of War / Act of Treason. Act of War High Treason.
Building completed.
Now, this is the spiritual successor to the last game I mentioned, in that it takes place in the same universe and has a relatively similar gameplay style. Now, Act of War was a clone of Command & Conquer Generals, you could say. Now, I don't say that in a negative way, because I absolutely loved Act of War. It was one of the first strategy games I played, besides Command & Conquer Generals, which was the first strategy game I ever played. Now, when you see Command & Conquer Generals, you see a game which is very, very well balanced, at least in its final stages, compared to this game. This game does not suffer from good balance issues. I'm gonna show you why later on in the video, but for now, just rest assured it is. So, one of the first things you'll notice about this game is its user interface. Its user interface is horrible. Now, you may wonder, is this your resources? I mean, it says resources right here, and all that. You got 1,000, 400, 0, yeah. So this is your resources, right? You'd be wrong. This is your resources, up here, at the top of the screen. Whoever thought putting it that far out of your way was a good idea, just no. No. That was a horrible choice of positioning, because, and I'll explain it here.
Impossible.
When I'm trying to mass produce an army, I'm not looking up here, I'm looking down here. This is where you get all your units. Like when I click on the barracks, all my units are down here. 400? It would be easy if it was just right here, above here. I could just go, okay, 400, I got 400, cool. No, I have to look up here. That is one of the first flaws. Secondly, is it's totally incomprehensible logistics system.
Building completed.
Now, Command & Conquer Generals has one resource. It's called money. This game has three. It has money, aluminum, and rare earth minerals. Money is what you use to get your most basic infantry. If you build your economy correctly, you can have money the entire game, no problem. That is not my issue with the game. My issue with the game...
Construction impossible.
Whoops. Just find a place for me to plot this. My issue with the game is these other unnecessary systems. I mean, aluminum and rare earth just add convoluted boredom to the game's later stages, not to mention extra resource management, which wasn't a part of the spiritual liege, I should say, of this game. It wasn't in Act of War, you just had money, and it was a better game for it. This game has unnecessary complications which do not add to the game. Power's out, I didn't realize because it's up the top instead of in a more reasonable area. So, the tech tree of this game is convoluted as hell. There are so many units in this game that to find every single one of them requires you to play a game just investigating them. Whereas the average strategy game has a limited but solid amount of units, this game decided more is better. More is not always better. Sometimes less is better. More is less. Less is more. Now, all of this you could deal with if you were a big enough fan of the series. The problem is that Act of War's one of its strongest performing areas was its campaign. This game's campaign is awful. As someone who loved Act of War's cheesy Command & Conquer-esque style, live-action 90s campaign movies, this game uses stock images in its campaign briefing videos, while they're voiced by some of the most talentless voice actors
Anti-tank missile loaded.
I've ever heard. Like, did you, like, listen, anti-tank missile loaded. I have heard just shovelware with more emotional voice acting than this game, which is disappointing. I mean, the original game did not have great voice acting, but it had better voice acting than this. And what's insulting is when people compare this to Command & Conquer Generals, Command & Conquer Generals had some of the best voice acted units
Ready to search for resources.
in the world. And its dialogue was funny. It was just a much better game.
Maximum storage reached.
Not only that, the gameplay in this is just bog standard. Now, you may wonder, why am I not being attacked? If you've played Command & Conquer Generals, or even Company of Heroes, there would be combat going on by now. We're about 5 minutes, 10 minutes into the game. Now, the reason why there is no combat is because combat is actively disencouraged. Now, I'm going to show you this by driving these two Humvees up like an idiot, while I just spam out some of these. I'll tell you why I'm going to spam them out later, and you'll figure out later. But for now, I'm halfway across the map. This is a 2v2, and I just want to point out, look at how big this map is. That's not a good thing. This creates some really slow, really boring gameplay, which is very uninteresting. This is not in any way interesting to me. My adrenaline isn't pumping at all. The medium AI's gotten in a building? Oh. Great. Now, as you notice here, what happened to my harassing force? It was a terrible harassing force, but do you know what happened?
I need an evac now.
Pilots have gone out. Now, this isn't like CNC General's pilots, who you can retain their veterancy and put in a new vehicle. No. If the enemy captures these guys, they get money. Meaning that if I was to try and harass, like, let's say I actually tried to harass instead of just driving it up, I would lose horrendously. Now, for doing that, yeah, I should have lost it. But if I had gone in smart and tried to do a little bit of resource picking off, maybe I could have delayed 500 resources. They'll get some resources from this, and if they build a detention center like a hospital, they'll get money every couple of minutes. Not minutes even. I think every couple of seconds they'll get some money, which is just bad.
Unit lost.
It leads to some very dull gameplay. Now, that you can just hear that I am disappointed as a person who enjoyed the original Act of Wars. But the fact that the campaign just fails so heavily alongside this is really what makes it really painful. Just the story in this is bog standard, cliched, and uninspired.
Building completed.
That sums it up in a nutshell. And to me, that's what makes it so painful. I mean, look at this game. This game is not an awful looker by any stretch of the word. It is a very nice looking game. Like, these Striker gun systems are decent. I mean, for the scale this game is at, it's no Company of Heroes, don't get me wrong. Company of Heroes, though, is a game played at about this level.
Jarhead's ready to fight.
And if you zoom in, The graphics aren't terrible. But they're not... Then they don't count for anything when the gameplay is just so boring. It just depresses me. There's none of the dodging and weaving you can have in other strategy games, mainly because you just engage at such a far distance. Like, the range is just so large that there is no reason to try and dodge. You cannot dodge. You just attack, move, and move forward.
Unit lost.
Hope to God you have, like, the ability to push through these, and yeah. By the way, these are an anti-aircraft vehicle, and they're easily winning against my anti-tank vehicles.
Light tank at your disposal.
Yeah. So, could this game have potential? In my opinion, yes, it has great potential.
Let's move.
The problem with this game is it's just poorly balanced. And all Eugene games have that problem. You know why? Because the developers, in my opinion, don't have the skill and talent to make a balanced game. The last game I played made by them, which was balanced, was Act of War.
Unit is under attack.
I mean, there's no reaction time in this, no time to kite. It's instantly destroyed. It tries to push this realism factor, but it leads to frustrating gameplay. Act of War was not realistic. Your units could take quite a beating, but it made for a more fun and engaging gameplay. A lack of intuitive
Unit
features
lost.
is what holds this game back.
We're quick and lethal.
And it just hurts me.
Quick and lethal.
I mean, as I said, I love Act of War, and seeing the series' spiritual successor reach this depth, it makes me very sad. I don't want to play this game anymore. I just really don't. So I'm gonna leave it there. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope this was informative. This game is just such a disappointment to me.